Good evening, Nancy from Reset Equine here. And today I just wanted to have a little chat to you about the ever recurring question of how long does it take? So how long does it take for the horse to return to its previous state of performance? Return to the point of where performance started to decline, and perhaps how long will it take for the horse to get where the owner, trainer, manager are aiming for it to get to once it started to have issues with progressing further. And the tricky question is with this. The tricky question is to ask what was the problem and what is the treatment for the problem, and also how long was the problem occurring for. I think the biggest reason that I have most people come to me when they're having problems is the horse can't progress further, it's having performance limiting issues, it's struggling to progress onwards, and they're concerned that there might be an issue with this. And the thing that I think the biggest misconception that is not fully understood is that it's not just the process of deciding what is the problem that the rider, the trainer, the manager was having during the performance training sessions, but what impact had this had on the rest of the horse's physiology the rest of the time. Because we may train for 6 days a week, we may train 3 days a week, but these periods of time are limited from 15 minutes to an hour, or perhaps longer, a few hours if you're doing long distance training. But the biggest thing we need to understand is the fact that the horse is actually a horse for 24 hours a day. So once we start to see these problems happening and the investigation's begun, then we're actually looking at a situation that is affecting the horse for much longer than we're actually requiring those, issues from. We're requiring the performance, which to our mind brings the issues up. So the other thing I really want you to think about too, and I think a message I really need to get across to people, is the fact that yes, we have this concept of the fact that the horse has a problem. And in our mind, we've got basically a limiting point. We've continued with the horse to a certain point, and then boom, it's gone downhill. The horse has declined in performance. It's not able to meet the progression that we need it to. It's not able to actually meet that level of performance and build further on it, whether it's a movement problem, whether it's a height issue, whether or not it's a recovery problem, whether or not speed, whatever it is that we need to actually work out what the problem is. Biggest thing that we need to understand though is the fact that this line up until the point of limit in performance is actually not a horizontal line, it's a declined line. And it is actually going downwards. This is the coping mechanism of the horse to continue with the performance that we've actually been asking for it at that period of time. So once it reaches a rapid decline, it's actually already been declining. So we've found the problem. We know what the issue is. We've got the treatment plan, we've got diagnostics, veterinary treatment's been undertaken, we've got a period of time that we need to wait for that healing to occur or for the treatment to be undertaken. And after this point, whether it's a period of a week, 2 weeks, 7 months, a year sometimes, then we can't progress from that point onwards. We of course have a loss of fitness if it's a long period of time, but not only if it is a short period of time that the horse has rectified its, particularly if it's a chronic issue, if it's a short period of time and it's occurred suddenly, we not only have that progression forwards to where we want to be in our performance, but we actually have to track back through to where this decline began at the start. Because this is truly where the horse is starting to show the problems. We can't just progress forwards. We've already progressed backwards in time because of the decline in the horse's capacity to do it. Not only do we have to actually progress backwards, but we actually have to make changes in the horse's habituated response programming so that it now understands when we're asking certain skills of it, we're asking for certain responses for that short period of time where we're training it, that these are continued through the rest of the 24-hour period. So it's never a progression forward. What we need to do is we need to start to understand and almost to gain a bit of an idea about when we could actually be, a time frame maybe we could actually be considering. The first thing we need to do is we need to think from the point that we discovered the diagnosis, we discovered the problem, to the point forwards where we could actually begin redevelopment of skills, redevelopment of fitness, rectification of musculoskeletal issues, rectification of neuromuscular patterns. We need to take that back to the point where we started to have some issues. We need to take that back when we first started to see changes in decline. And once we've got that period of time, we need to look at all of the issues and aspects of the horse's training that it started to influence, because there will be more than one. And then we start to build a picture of influence. We can't just fix and progress forwards into our hopeful skill outcome. We have to always go back and take the horse through each of those physiological change processes, in particular, each of those skill processes, to change the horse's understanding of the behavioral reactions and the physiological responses that are required under a state of controlled pathology, a state of controlled health, and a state of managed health, so that then the horse can start to actually potentially reach where we want it to be in regards to performance. So it's never just fix and onwards. It's never that. And we need to understand that this is normal. This is building athletes. This is building skills. It's no different to thinking about us as, for example, swimmers or runners or any other athlete. If we've consistently had an issue with a technique that we have, it's going to have affected every single aspect of our performance utilizing that technique. And it's the same with the horse. The difference with us is we can actually self-remind ourselves every time we train what we're aiming for and reflect on what we're doing that isn't actually correct. Whereas the horse can't do that. All it can do is react. So that's why healing and rectification and return to a continued peak of performance, direction in regards to peak of performance, is always a process of creating habituation in the horse. And that is effectively what we're wanting to actually do with our training. We need to habituate the horse first to a state of normality in performance and normality in posture, normality in musculoskeletal outcomes. And then from that point onwards, we're of course using our learning theory techniques of pressure and release, positive reinforcement, to basically provide the outcomes that we need physiologically and also behaviorally. So it takes time. It's never just, recovery, treatment, and onwards. It's always a step back. Okay, food for thought. Feel free to chuck some questions down below, and I look forward to seeing you next time.